Chapter 1651. It was normal for males to break an arm or a leg during a fight, so Elvis did not take it to heart at first. But after Leah found out about it, he told him that the rules of this world were different from the beast world, and that he might bring trouble to Gu Meng by beating people up like that. Just like what Leah said, this was the world that Gu Meng was familiar with. She lived more comfortably here, so he and Leah hoped that she could stay here as she pleased, and not be forced to end this illusion because of them. Gu Meng turned back to look at Snake, asking, "Ah, Kel." Snake chuckled and rubbed Gu Meng's head, saying, "It's alright, didn't he just fight a boxing match in the black market? It's common for people to be beaten to death in this kind of underground competition, so no one would pursue it. Moreover, F country is my territory, as long as he doesn't beat the president to death in public, I can settle everything else." Gu Meng sweated. So, what Snake meant was that it was not that the president could not be beaten to death, as long as it was not in public. Snake looked at Gu Meng's darkened face, and could not help but smile, saying, alright, even if he beats the president to death in public, I will definitely protect him. Is that alright? Don't worry. Gu Meng roared in her heart, you are making me even more worried, alright? No normal person would beat the president to death, alright? If you support them like this, aren't you afraid that Elvis will be even more unbridled in the future? Xiao Meng, don't worry. In the future, I won't beat people up so easily. Elvis coaxed Gu Meng. I'm afraid that's not up to you. Snake walked to Gu Meng with a faint smile, and placed his phone on top of Gu Meng's makeup box. The phone was playing a video, and the scene was of an underground boxing match. Although his face was blurred out, Gu Meng could recognize that one of the two people on the stage was Elvis. This. Gu Meng was confused. Snakel smiled as he kept his phone and said, the one whose arm was broken by Elvis is the most popular boxing champion in the past 2 years. People call him Boss Black Boxing. Countless boxers have died in his hands. But today, his right arm was crippled by a light toss from Elvis. But the boss behind the scenes is not a righteous person. He has no intention of seeking justice for the Black Fist boss. Instead, he offered a huge reward to find out Elvis's whereabouts. It is obvious that he wants to groom him well. Gu Meng shook her head and said, No, I don't want Elvis to be associated with this kind of person. Snake rubbed Gu Meng's little head and said, alright, then I will suppress this news and guarantee that Elvis will not find this person on their information channels. Wait. Elvis frowned as he took Snake's phone and swiped it twice. His brows lightly touched as he stared at it for a long time before turning to look at Gu Meng. In a negotiating tone, he said, Xiao Meng, can you let me fight another round? Gu Meng looked at Elvis in confusion and asked, why? If you want to exercise your muscles, Snake and Leah are good sparring partners. No matter how strong those people in the underground black market are, they are not enough for you to fight. Elvis shook his head and said, no, I don't want to fight, I just want this. Chapter 1652. The boss of the black boxing boss took out an extremely exquisite comb. It was said to be one of the dowries of the first queen of F country. It was inlaid with the world's most perfect ruby, the blazing sun. It was said that this comb could make the woman who owned it extremely blissful. Gu Meng chuckled. A comb could make someone extremely blissful? Why don't you say that the ruby on it is from De Beers Kimberly? A ruby is everlasting, one will be passed down forever. Xiao Meng. Elvis looked serious. Yes, he had obviously eaten this Amway. No. Gu Meng put on a straight face and said, I only need one wooden comb. I don't have the hobby of collecting combs. Moreover, I only have one head and this much hair. How many combs can I use? Hubby, listen to me. This person is obviously lying to you. If you go for this comb this time, he will use some other gimmick comb to entice you to fight again. Fight after fight, it will never end. Elvis pursed his lips. If it could make Xiao Meng happier, it was really nothing to fight. Hubby, you are different from the people here. If you expose yourself too many times, you will definitely attract attention. What if your identity is exposed? I won't. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face. He coaxed and begged, I promise, I won't let anyone discover my identity. I still want to stay here and accompany you to live the life you like. But Xiao Meng, I am a male. I can't hide at home forever and wait for others to provide for me. I have to have my own ability to protect you. Gu Mengmeng choked and could not say a word. Snake had worked hard here for 19 years. With the noble bloodline of the royal family, his social status and wealth naturally went without saying. When Leah was in the beast world, he had already learned many years of medical skills through television. He was naturally intelligent and exceptionally gifted in medical skills. She believed that it would not take long for him to achieve outstanding achievements in the medical field. While Elvis, as the first partner in the family, did not have his own career. She had neglected a man's pride. Be it in the beast world or the modern world, living off a woman was a disgrace to a man. But Gu Mengmeng still felt uneasy. Fighting in an underground fight sounded dangerous no matter how she heard it. Elvis smiled and said, I have the power of a beast king. No one in this world can hurt me. Snake placed his hand on Gu Mengmeng's shoulder lightly and said, with the royal family protecting him, no one would dare to make things difficult for him. Leah also swayed his large tail and sat by the bed. He smiled at Gu Mengmeng in the mirror and said, if I really meet a strong opponent one day and get my arms or legs broken, then I can use them for clinical trials. That's pretty good. Alright, the three of them were on the same team. Gu Mengmeng looked at Gregory, who had not said a word. Gregory only smiled and said, I'm just a guardian beast. I don't have the right to question the first partner's decision. Gu Mengmeng sighed and cupped Elvis's face with both hands. Hubby, you have to promise me not to get hurt. All right. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face and this matter was settled. The next morning, Gu Mengmeng packed her things and headed straight to the hospital to visit Bai Lan and Zhang Jinsheng. It was not convenient for Elvis and Leah to appear, so Snake and Gregory accompanied her. Out of topic. Chapter 1653. Girl. The moment the door to the ward opened, Bai Lan saw Gu Mengmeng. She immediately threw away the apple she was chewing halfway and opened her arms, waiting for Gu Mengmeng to deliver herself to her. Snake was unwilling but had no choice. He could only let go of Gu Mengmeng and watch as Gu Mengmeng threw herself into someone else's arms. How are you? Does it still hurt? Gu Mengmeng hugged Bai Lan, then pulled a pillow over for her to lean on. Bai Lan laughed heartlessly and said, I'm fine, but he, glancing sideways at Zhang Jinsheng, Bai Lan blushed and said, he agreed to my proposal. 2 years later, he will have a graduation certificate on his left hand and a marriage certificate on the right. After taking off his academic robes, he will directly wear a wedding dress. What? Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded and completely out of it. Bai Lan chuckled and said, sorry girl, I might have to abandon you. This man is too stupid. If I don't keep a close eye on him, he will be snatched away by others. So, can you understand me? Gu Mengmeng burst out laughing and said, you are really too much. You are the one, proposing? Why don't you let him do it? Bai Lan glanced at Zhang Jinsheng's knees and said, in this lifetime, I will never let him be afraid of his knees touching the ground again. Gu Mengmeng did not understand and turned to look at Snake. Snake said, when those people kidnapped them yesterday, Zhang Jinsheng knelt on the ground and used his body to protect Bai Lan. After that, Mo Fen waved the rod in front of you and broke Zhang Jinsheng's calf bone. I have already contacted the best doctor and he will be able to walk normally in the future. But when it rains, it will definitely hurt. Gu Mengmeng lowered her eyes and held Bai Lan's hand, saying, Bai Lan, I'm sorry, it's all because of me that you guys have been implicated. Silly girl, what are you saying? Bai Lan pinched Gu Mengmeng. If it wasn't for you, I would never have believed that someone would risk her life for me and not abandon me even under such circumstances. I've been strong for 19 years, and this is the first time I've been protected. Girl, if what Mo Fan did is related to you, then I should thank you. If it wasn't for this, I might have missed out on the only idiot in my life who values me more than her own life. But Gu Mengmeng looked at Bai Lan and Zhang Jincheng's white bandages and felt guilty. Bai Lan raised her arm and smiled. You're talking about this? Come on, you're so pretentious. I have a bad temper, and I spend more time in the hospital than in the dormitory. This injury is nothing. Gu Mengmeng was speechless. That year, when Bai Lan was beaten up to the point of asking for her salary, she had said the same thing to her. Gu Mengmeng tugged at Bai Lan's hand. Since you have decided to get married, you cannot be so hot-tempered in the future. You have to think about your man too, don't you? Without you, what will he do? Bai Lan glanced at Zhang Jincheng, smiled and said, I understand. Zhang Jincheng, who had remained silent from the start, frowned at Bai Lan's smile. Bai Lan, your proposal does not count. Chapter 1654. Gu Mengmeng was really at a loss. Were these two really going to get married? Why did she feel like Bai Lan was going to snatch an innocent man? Zhang Jincheng was not annoyed. He waited for Bai Lan to finish yelling before narrowing his eyes. Bai Lan, you're sitting on my wound. It's a little painful, ah? Bai Lan was shocked. She immediately stood up from Zhang Jincheng's body and glared down at him. Pain, what pain? You're going to break off the marriage and leave me. Why would I care if it hurts? Although she said that, she did not sit back down. Her careful look was clearly because she was afraid of touching Zhang Jincheng's wound again. Zhang Jincheng seemed to be used to her tough mouth but soft heart. He didn't mind that she was standing high up on his bed and looking down at him. He was willing to look up at her. When I recover, I'll still be the one to propose. Zhang Jincheng said gently. I told you before, I don't have much more than others. But what other women have, I, Zhang Jincheng's wife, cannot lack. Marriage only happens once in a lifetime. You have to make me beg you to marry me. Only then will you have enough confidence to put on airs when you come to my house. If someone in my family makes things difficult for you when I'm not at home, then you can confidently yell, it was your Zhang Jincheng who shamelessly begged me to marry him. Only then will you be unyielding and won't be bullied, understand? Bai Lan's anger instantly subsided. She cleared her throat and jumped down from Zhang Jincheng's bed. Then, she quietly sat back on the bed and covered herself with the blankets. With a demure expression, she said, if you want to beg, just do it. Why are you so fierce? Gu Mengmeng burst out laughing. Zhang Jincheng fierce? From the beginning to the end, the other party had been speaking softly and softly, while Bai Lan, on the other hand, was like a female bandit, straddling him like she was going to beat him up. I was wrong. I shouldn't have been fierce to you. Zhang Jincheng apologized without any principles. Gu Mengmeng was shocked. In the beast world, it was normal for males to compromise like this. But this was the modern world. Other than saying, I can't do anything if you think that way, and the all-purpose golden phrase, drink more hot water, guys could actually do such things. Io. Gu Mengmeng clutched her forehead and looked at Snake, who had knocked her on the head, her eyes filled with accusation. Snake clenched his teeth and scooped Gu Mengmeng up. The visit is over. Let's go back to school. Huh? Gu Mengmeng protested, didn't you say that with you around, no one would dare to record me for skipping class? I still have to accompany Bai Lan. What's there to accompany? Does she need you to accompany her? You big third wheel. Snake carried Gu Mengmeng away without giving her a chance to explain. Gu Mengmeng thought about it. Snake was right, he really did not need her to accompany him now. After leaving the hospital, Snake shoved Gu Mengmeng into the car. He did not start the car, but stared at Gu Mengmeng with a dark face, as if he wanted to stare 2 holes into her face. What's wrong? Gu Mengmeng felt guilty for no reason. Are you regretting it? Snake narrowed his eyes. Danger filled the entire carriage. What? Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded. Snake said, if I hadn't snatched your love letter back then, Zhang Jinsheng would be your boyfriend now, right? Seeing how considerate he is towards Bailan, you regret letting him off, right? Gu Mengmeng held her forehead. The sorrow in her heart flowed like a river. Chapter 1655. Don't play around with your friend's wife. Don't touch your best friend's man. Gu Mengmeng was tired of how her man could not be picky about the brand, origin, year and quality when he got jealous. And Gu Mengmeng's explanation clearly did not satisfy Snake. He squinted his eyes and emitted a dangerous aura. After a while, he suddenly laughed again. With a cold voice, he said, Bailan better be your best friend forever and never break up with Zhang Jinsheng, or else I will eat him up. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and only understood Snake's train of thought after a long while. Don't touch my best friend's man, so as long as Zhang Jinsheng was still Bailan's man, Gu Mengmeng would never touch him. At the same time, if Zhang Jinsheng was no longer Bailan's man, or if Bailan and Gu Mengmeng were no longer best friends, then Gu Mengmeng would touch Zhang Jinsheng. Gu Mengmeng sighed. It was really unreasonable to talk to a man who got jealous. Don't worry, my friendship with Bailan will last forever. She and Zhang Jinsheng will also grow old together. Snake's lips curled up and he said, I hope so. Bailan and Zhang Jinsheng's physique was very good and Snake had specially arranged for the most authoritative doctor from F country to come over. This action alarmed Snake's parents in F country and they called Snake's assistant to find out that Gu Mengmeng had been kidnapped and threatened. They almost fainted from the shock and old mistress cried and wiped her tears, saying that she would arrange for a private jet to fly to S city to bring her precious daughter-in-law back to F country to protect her. Poor parents, although their son was outstanding since young and had a surly and unapproachable character, but he was still their son. After 19 years of coldness, their son finally became more amiable towards them because of this daughter-in-law. God knows how much they treasured this daughter-in-law. Afterwards, Snake sent a video call to his family with a cold face and told them clearly that, don't come. Old mistress was about to cry but Gu Mengmeng snatched Snake's phone and coaxed her gently, saying that she was really fine and not to worry. She even promised to fly to F country to see them once the holidays started. Only then did she finally calm down. After more than 2 months, Bailan and Zhang Jinsheng finally left the hospital. It was said that it would take 100 days for one's bones and tendons to recover, but Zhang Jinsheng had played basketball since he was young, so his physique was much better than the average person. Of course, he could not be compared to perverts like Elvis and Snake. They were not human. The doctor said that Zhang Jinsheng could walk normally with this leg, but he definitely couldn't touch basketball anymore. Jumping and other strenuous activities could not be done again. In the future, he would have to pay special attention to his health and not get hurt again. Then, 2 months later, Gu Mengmeng received a call from Zhang Jinsheng out of the blue. Without saying anything, he shamelessly begged her to keep Bailan in the dormitory for the next 3 days and not let her go out. Then, at 8 p.m., he had to bring her to the basketball court. Gu Mengmeng frowned, realizing that things were not so simple. After experiencing so many things in the beast world, Zhang Jinsheng's thoughts were really too obvious. Chapter 1656. Facing 4 pairs of cunning eyes, Gu Mengmeng truly felt wronged. Strictly speaking, she was not the one who wrote this love letter. When this love letter was handed to Zhang Jinsheng, she was still lying beside Wang Xiaoxin, calling her daddy. But now, she felt like she could not explain herself. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, I feel that Zhang Jinsheng might be calling me to propose to Bailan. Why would he call you to propose to Bailan? Elvis frowned and asked directly. Before Gu Mengmeng could reply, Leah laughed and said, who knows? Maybe Bailan is just a cover and he actually wants to propose to Gu Mengmeng? With that, the temperature in the room dropped to the North Pole. Gu Mengmeng hurriedly waved her hands and said, I swear, Shut up. Snake said coldly and angrily, the first rule of the family, you are not allowed to swear. Now you want to break your own family rule for a Enchanting? Gu Mengmeng choked, meeting Snake's eyes. She could not say the word, swear. Cutting open her chest to take her gallbladder, how heavy was that oath? Sneaking a glance at the silent Gregory, Gu Mengmeng's heart sank when she met Gregory's sorrowful eyes. Broken wings and blind eyes, oaths were not good things, she should not have said it. You don't have to care about me, I am not in a position to express my opinion. Gregory's body shook indiscernibly. Gu Mengmeng was immediately drowned in guilt. Gregory meant that he did not agree, but he did not have the right to disagree. As a guardian, he did not even have the right to be jealous. Xiao Meng. Elvis clenched his fists so tightly that his bones were cracking. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sentence, if you want a partner who is the same as you. I can accept it. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis's cheeks bulging, his gums were probably about to bleed from clenching so hard. Gu Mengmeng was really on the verge of breaking down. Heaven knew that she and Enchanting were as innocent as an unopened A4 paper. That Gu Mengmeng, who liked Enchanting, was not her. What a generous first mate. However, a male pet like me doesn't have that kind of magnanimity. I was born to be jealous and petty, I can't allow anyone to be more pampered than me by Mengmeng. So, if you want to mate with Mengmeng, sure, but you have to defeat me first. Leah raised his head, giving off a, if he's the only one, attitude. Sure. Gu Mengmeng slapped her thigh and said, how about this, if Enchanting doesn't propose to Bailan but to me 3 days later, you guys will eat him up on the spot and I will help you prepare waxami, how about that? Snake, Leah, Elvis and Gregory exchanged glances with one another, before curling their lips in satisfaction and nodding their heads in agreement. Gu Mengmeng finally heaved a sigh of relief. But Bailan is my friend after all. This is probably the only time she will propose in her lifetime. So if Enchanting needs your help. Kel, don't shirk away. Try your best to help him, okay? Snake smiled and said, if the person he proposes to is Bailan, no one in this world would want him to succeed more than the 4 of us. So don't worry, we will grant your request. This matter was settled. Chapter 1657. Io, your snake is suddenly so easygoing today. They actually let you out to accompany me? Bailan looked at Gu Mengmeng, who had suddenly asked her out to go shopping. She smiled playfully. Why? Have your 2 icebergs finally collided and merged into one? Gu Mengmeng blushed. She now seriously felt that it was Bailan who had led her astray when she had first arrived in the beast world. She pinched Bailan's waist and said, Snake is the real CEO of Monster Company after all, doesn't he have to work every day? Bailan, however, did not believe it. She took a sip of her hazelnut frappuccino and said, this semester, ever since the 2 of you started dating in a high-profile manner, when have you ever seen him neglect you because of work? The person who wants to tie you to his belt every day suddenly gives you freedom. TSK, there must be a reason for this abnormality. Although I don't like him, from an objective point of view, he's still a good boyfriend. Silly girl, you have to be more vigilant. Don't let others take advantage of you. If that happens, you won't even have a place to cry. Gu Mengmeng was really speechless. Snake and the rest were busy helping Enchanting arrange for his marriage proposal, but the one being proposed to was actually suspecting him of cheating. Gu Mengmeng could not betray Enchanting, so she could only laugh dryly. What are you afraid of, have you forgotten? Snake has already transferred the Monster Company to me. I am now a true rich lady in S City. Bailan chuckled and said, all right, then my dream has come true. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and smiled, what dream? Bailan, one day, when our girl becomes a rich woman, she'll come back and support me. Gu Mengmeng laughed heartily and hugged Bailan's shoulders. All right, your dream has come true. Today, I'll take care of you for a day. I'll bring you out to eat and buy, how about that? Bailan pretended to be bashful as she leaned against Gu Mengmeng's shoulder, pinching her throat as she said, "All right." The two of them immediately had goosebumps. They rubbed their shoulders, smiled, and walked into the mall arm in arm. They really began to buy all kinds of things. If it was in the past, Gu Mengmeng might not have been able to swipe Snake's card like that. But now, although they were not protected by modern marriage laws, but a man who could die twice for her. He was willing to give his life to her, how could he not be willing to spend money? Moreover, it was just an illusion. Why not to satisfy herself and Bailan? From skincare products to clothes, shoes, hats and handbags, Gu Mengmeng and Bailan only stopped when they could no longer carry everything. Meanwhile, at the other end of the basketball court, Snake's face brightened up as the spending records kept appearing on his phone. Gu Shen. Gu. 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 You. Gu. I, tu, gu. Gu gu. Tian. I. Lon. I, tu. Bailan and tu. Looking at the things she and Bailan were carrying, Gu Mengmeng pretended to be tired and said, "There are too many things, we can't carry them all." Bye-bye. Lon. King Bai, Bailan nodded in deep agreement. Lon. But. Lon. But. But. Yes, but I bought too many things, so I can't carry them all. Can you come and pick us up? Chapter 1658. We are at Zhuozhan. Snake answered directly. How did you know? Gu Mengmeng asked in confusion. Snake smiled and answered, "There's a note on the text message about the place of consumption." Gu Mengmeng was at a loss for words. She smiled and said, "All right, we will wait for you at the entrance." Snake responded, then left some instructions to Zhang Jinsheng before driving off. On the way back, Gu Mengmeng got more nervous the closer they got to the basketball arena. She was so nervous that she did not dare to look at Bailan's eyes. She did not know if it was a psychological effect, but Gu Mengmeng's entire body tensed up. She laughed self-deprecatingly in her heart. Bailan was being proposed to, why was she so nervous? Finally, the car stopped at the entrance of the basketball arena. The lights in the arena were switched off and it was pitch black. Bailan asked, "What are we doing here?" Gu Mengmeng was so nervous that she kept stuttering. She looked at Snake helplessly and said, Yes, what are we doing here?" Snake reached out a hand and stroked Gu Mengmeng's little head with a gentle smile. "Just now, Zhang Jinsheng called me and said that he had left the anti-inflammatory medicine in the changing room when he came to settle the paperwork to leave the team. He asked Bailan to help him get it and he will go to Bailan's place to get it tomorrow." Bailan replied with with a look of disdain. She then got off the car and said to Gu Mengmeng, "Then you two wait here for me. We have too many things, you have to send me back to the dormitory." Gu Mengmeng gave an okay sign and watched as Bailan entered the basketball arena. After Bailan entered the basketball arena, Gu Mengmeng stretched her neck to look inside. Her two little hands clutched Snake's arm tightly. After waiting for a long time, there was no reaction from inside. Gu Mengmeng became a little anxious. "Why is there no movement?" Snake scanned the arena and said, "That's right, why is there no movement? There couldn't have been any mistakes, right?" Gu Mengmeng's face was full of worry. "No, this is an important day for Bailan. Let's go in and take a look. We cannot let this matter go wrong." "All right." Snakel smiled indulgently and allowed Gu Mengmeng to pull him down the car and walk towards the basketball court. Gu Mengmeng was so focused on Bailan that she did not notice that the moment they alighted, Snake held on to her tightly. It looked like he was being pulled by her, but behind her, he was looking at her with such a gentle and loving gaze. The lights in the basketball court were not switched on, but it was pitch black inside. Gu Mengmeng should have been able to see clearly with her night vision, but the moment she stepped into the basketball court, her eyes were blindfolded by Snakel. "What are you doing?" Gu Mengmeng did not struggle and just asked curiously. Snake nudged Gu Mengmeng inside and said, "Be good, wait a while." Gu Mengmeng felt that it was strange, but her heart was thumping non-stop. Vaguely, Gu Mengmeng seemed to understand something. Snake. Gu Mengmeng sounded like she was about to cry as she called out Snake's name. Snake slowly released Gu Mengmeng's eyes. At the same time, with a click of the switch, the entire basketball court was brightly lit as if it was daytime. The words, "Gu Mengmeng, I love you," were written on the balloon castle. Chapter 1659. Gu Mengmeng was so touched that she wanted to cry, and in fact, she was already crying. "What are you doing?" Gu Mengmeng was laughing and crying at the same time. She did not know what to say. After Snake returned, they became partners not long after. His mark was already on her heart. Why was he still proposing now? She was already married to him. How could she still say no now? Snake just knelt there without moving, looking up and smiling without a hint of impatience. He just replied gently, "How can I allow you to be envious of other women because of other men? I cannot allow you to feel aggrieved or regretful, not even the slightest bit. But didn't you say you would only propose once?" Gu Mengmeng was so touched that her tears started to fall, but she forgot to let Snake stand up. Snake just knelt there, still smiling. His eyes were filled with deep emotions. "In front of you, I never have any principles or bottom line. For you, I can do anything. What's the big deal about overthrowing myself?" Gu Mengmeng wanted to say something, but Bailan could not stand it anymore. She pushed her lightly from behind and said, "Are you just going to let him kneel like this?" Gu Mengmeng then reacted. "Hurry and get up, you haven't agreed to my proposal, how can I get up?" Snake was still smiling. His gaze towards Gu Mengmeng was as gentle as water and as deep as the ocean. "Say yes. Say yes. Say yes." Everyone present started to jeer. Because in their eyes, Snake and Gu Mengmeng were just a couple who had confirmed their relationship for a few months. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head forcefully, then smiled and pulled Snake up. Snake took the opportunity to pull Gu Mengmeng into his arms. He kissed her forehead and said, "In 3 lifetimes, you are the only one I have knelt to. Gu Mengmeng, you have the right to be arrogant." Gu Mengmeng buried her face in Snake's arms. She knew that what he said about 3 lifetimes was not just an adjective. Following this hug, the relatives and friends who came to witness this happy moment all pulled the ribbons. Colorful ribbons and colorful pieces of paper fell from the sky. Blessings filled the surroundings. Partners. She had 3. But this was the first time she experienced a real proposal. Gu Mengmeng never knew that even though she had given birth to a few children, her maiden heart was still budding. And Snake was the one who revived her maiden heart. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Snake's eyes and said gently, "Ah Kel, thank you." Snake kissed Gu Mengmeng's eyes and said, "What are you thanking me for? This is what I should give you. We'll be on holiday next week. Let's go back to F country to get our marriage certificate and have our honeymoon." Huh? Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. "What? You just agreed to my proposal, and now you're going back on your word?" "No." Gu Mengmeng was in a difficult position. She glanced at Elvis, Leah and Gregory from the corner of her eyes. Snake bit Gu Mengmeng's ear lightly and said, "Silly girl, do you really not know how much your males love you?" Gu Mengmeng looked at the 3 of them standing at the side in confusion. She then looked back at Snake's face. Snake kissed her on the lips and said, "Your men will never bear for you to suffer in any way." What he meant was that Elvis and the other 2 had agreed to Snake's actions today. Chapter 1660. You will experience such a scene 2 or 3 more times. But today, you are mine. Snake used a voice that only the two of them could hear to whisper into Gu Mengmeng's ear, before kissing her deeply on the lips. After a round of hubbub, Gu Mengmeng pushed Snake with a blushing face, before turning to look at Bailan. Narrowing her eyes, she said, "Great, you are actually in cahoots with them?" Bailan raised her hands in surrender, saying, "I am a traitor, I am guilty." So what Zhang Jinqing proposing, was all a ruse. Today, I am not the one pestering you, you are the one pestering me? Gu Mengmeng was really speechless, to think that she was so good at acting, how could she not see that she had been tricked by Bailan? Bailan laughed heartily, stretching out her left hand and shaking her fingers. Zhang Jinqing proposed to me last week in the hospital. Today, in order to lie to you, I didn't even dare to wear an engagement ring. Bailan. Your engagement is such a big event, how could you not call me? Gu Mengmeng pounced on Bailan relentlessly, not hitting her, but just tickling her. Bailan was most ticklish, so she could only beg for mercy, saying, "I was wrong, I was really wrong, ha ha ha, girl, forgive me, ha ha ha. I am doing this for my future husband's future, what future?" Gu Mengmeng's hand stopped moving, looking at Bailan in confusion. Bailan held on to Zhang Jincheng's arm, leaning against his shoulder like a little bird, saying, "Zhang Jincheng took over as the CEO of the MO Group 3 days ago, and now your fiancé Snake is my fiancé's boss. Sorry, for the sake of our family's future happiness, I can only shamelessly betray my friend for my own glory." "You still dare to act so righteously," Gu Mengmeng said, but she was smiling. "Of course I'm righteous." Bailan laughed, "Just based on our relationship, I can act righteously in front of you for the rest of my life. Anyway, you can't bear to not acknowledge me. You win." Gu Mengmeng swung her arm in the end, before leaning back into Snake's arms. That night, the basketball stadium was very lively. Her close friends, men and women, were all drunk together. Later, they said that they were so drunk that they saw a fox and a wolf jumping up and down in the basketball court, making a fool of themselves. A gigantic bird that he had never seen before was flying around the basketball court. There seemed to be a drunk girl on its back, singing at the top of her lungs. And the amazing thing was that even though they were out of tune, they could still sing together. After waking up, everyone showed great interest in this dream. The probability of everyone having the same dream was really not high, so everyone tried to go back and check the surveillance to see what exactly happened that night that caused them to have the same hallucination. It was a pity that the surveillance footage was suddenly cut off after Gu Mengmeng agreed to Snake's proposal. It was said that the fuse of the camera was blown. Meanwhile, in the villa on the other side, Gu Mengmeng was standing in front of the television, pointing at a fox and a wolf in a drunken stupor, asking, "In the past, you two were not convinced when I said that your alcohol tolerance was bad. What about this time? Isn't this irrefutable evidence? Would he still drink in the future? Huh? Would he still drink?" Elvis and Leah shook their heads obediently, indicating that they would never touch alcohol again. Then, they looked at Snake at the same time. They clearly remembered that Snake also drank quite a lot, so why was he fine? Snake's lips curled up, looking at Elvis and Leah, saying, "You two are still very weak." Aside from the topic, the first part of the story ended here. This part was mainly led by Snake, and there were also other spies planted in the middle. If the reaction of the story is good, and everyone likes it, I will consider the content of other people proposing to Gu Mengmeng. Chapter 1661. Although the kidnapping incident was over and those hooligans who insisted that they saw demons were locked up in the mental hospital, there were always coincidences. For example, the scene that day was actually witnessed by a few homeless beggars. But their words did not carry much weight, and even if they said it, no one would believe them. But the hooligans' testimonies, the beggars' rumors and the scene that the students thought they saw when they were drunk on the day of the engagement, combined together, it gradually formed an exaggerated version of the story that even Gu Mengmeng herself found ridiculous. In order not to expose any more flaws, they could only complete the school transfer procedures and follow Snake back to F Country. F Country was Snake's home ground and he had a strong family background as his backing. As for academics, naturally no one dared to seriously calculate Gu Mengmeng's academic points. Therefore, this ordinary student from a third-rate university in S City had transformed into a top student from a famous brand university in F Country. Gu Mengmeng sat on the small boat drifting with the current and held her chin. Looking at the males surrounding her, she sighed softly. Although in this era, Snake was Gu Mengmeng's legitimate fiancé, the beast world had its own rules. No matter how strong the other partners were, the position of the first partner could not be violated. So, outside of Snake's home, Gu Mengmeng would always sit in Elvis's arms. What's wrong? Elvis's gaze was always concerned about the little person in his arms. No matter how different this world was from the beast world, in his eyes, it was just the same mountains and rivers. Only the one in his arms was a thousand-faced beauty that he could not get enough of. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Elvis and did not say a word before lowering her head again. If you don't like this place, can we go to other countries to play? Anyway, the problem of their identities has already been resolved, we can go anywhere. The current Snake was no longer the cold Snake King with low EQ. In front of Gu Mengmeng, both his EQ and EQ were always online. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and still did not say a word. Leah laughed softly and transformed his large tail to sit beside Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng instinctively hugged his tail but her eyes widened. She instinctively lowered her voice and said, "Are you crazy? We are outside. What if someone sees us? Take it back, take it back." Leah placed his hands on Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and squinted his long and narrow eyes. His faint smile had a unique charm to it as he whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, "How can I let you go when you're hugging me so tightly? Mengmeng who says one thing and means another is so cute." Gu Mengmeng looked down at her own hands. Sigh, what a good-for-nothing. This furry fetish was her Achilles heel, and she could not change it. Just as he was about to let go, Leah added, "Don't worry, even if someone sees it, they would only think that you're wearing a foxtail as an accessory. I've seen it on the road. Many people hang a fox's tail on their bags. It's just that the ones they hang aren't as good as yours." As Leah spoke, he even used the tip of his tail to tickle Gu Mengmeng's skin. It was so ticklish that Gu Mengmeng giggled before he stopped. Gregory sat quietly at the side. His eyes were filled with deep affection, but he didn't say a word. Unless Gu Mengmeng took the initiative to call him, he had no right to speak in this family. Aside from the topic, "My babies, sorry for the long wait. The editor informed us that we can continue updating the chapter at the last minute." Previously, everyone had been saying that Susu was biased towards Snake and only updated his marriage proposals, not the other three. So now that Susu had the chance, she came to present the marriage proposals one by one. Chapter 1662. Only when Gu Mengmeng smiled did the atmosphere on the boat lighten up. After all, every time she sighed, the four males would feel their hearts wrench. Leah was naturally a great hero, because no matter if it was in the beast world or the present world, he was always the one who knew how to make Gu Mengmeng happy. The current Snake also knew how to tease Gu Mengmeng, but he did not have a tail like Leah. TSK, he really wanted to kill him. Previously in the Snake King Valley, this fellow used his tail to make fun of him. Now it was like this again. But what else could he do? That tail was what Tu Meng liked. Leah did not care about Snake's inner thoughts. He struck while the iron was hot and asked, "Mengmeng, tell me, why are you sighing? Did someone make you unhappy, or did you think of something unpleasant? If you say it, Daddy Leah will settle it for you." Gu Mengmeng poked Lee's forehead, causing his head to tilt backwards. Then, she flung Lee's tail away and shrunk into Elvis's arms, hugging him tightly and saying, "I want to return to the beast world." Once she said those words, the males looked at each other for a while. If it was something else, they could do it for her. But Gu Mengmeng was the previous beast deity, the messenger of the beast deity. her identity could never appear in the beast world again. It was not that these beast kings were unwilling to hide their identities with her, but the doors of time and space that belonged to her had already closed and disappeared, never to reappear again. Gu Mengmeng buried her face in Elvis's chest, ignoring the males who were racking their brains to think of a solution. She just continued, I like the rules in the beast world. There are no sluts who stare at other males day in and day out. The moment he said that, the other three turned to look at Elvis in unison. Elvis's face darkened. I don't know her, nor did I speak to her. She can't be slut on me. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head, harumphed and did not reply, but her arms around Elvis's waist tightened. Elvis was also helpless. Before boarding the boat, she suddenly said she wanted to eat ice cream, so Elvis crossed the small square in front of the pier to buy it for her. Unexpectedly, when he came back, a woman in a revealing and strange outfit suddenly stuffed a note into his pocket. He held the ice cream with both hands and couldn't push her away. The woman wanted more and wanted to kiss him. Elvis could not accept any females other than Gu Mengmeng getting close to him. Especially since he was a wolf beast and was especially sensitive to smells, the smell on that female almost made him choke to death. Therefore, without thinking, he raised his leg and kicked the woman, sending her flying. No matter what others were saying, Elvis returned to Gu Mengmeng's side without turning back. In the end, Gu Mengmeng did not even want to eat the ice cream. She pounced into his arms and tore out the note from his pocket. She threw it into the bin with the ice cream and hung it on his body. He was the one who hugged her every day, so he didn't think too much about it. Seeing that she was in a bad mood, he didn't dare to speak casually, afraid that he would say something wrong and make her even more unhappy. Now that she opened her mouth, he finally understood that his Xiao Meng was jealous. Actually, he was quite happy. Because if she was jealous, it meant that she cared about him. Chapter 1663. But I just don't like it. Gu Mengmeng said in a low, muffled voice, when we were in Z country, it was because the few of you were attracting attention with your exotic looks. Every day, there would be lascivious bees and butterflies trying to get close to you. That was why I decided to come to F country. I originally thought that your looks would not differ much from the locals here and those women would not stick to you anymore. Who knew that you all had a bitch-attracting buff, causing people to worry no matter where you go? Leah maintained his noble character of not letting others die and pointed at Elvis and said, Mengmeng, I'm innocent. The females in my medical team have long been kicked out by me. Even the corpses I use for dissection are male. I know my Mengmeng hates other females touching me the most, so I love myself very much and will not give those bitches a chance to get close to me. As Leah said that, he even transformed his beast ears and rubbed them against Gu Mengmeng's hand, looking like he was begging for praise and love. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head in satisfaction before reaching out to rub Lee's beast ears. She looked at Leah with a "you're still the most obedient" expression, causing Lee's heart to flutter before a little fox seductive fragrance was released. Snakel frowned and grabbed Leah by the back of his neck, throwing him to the other side of the boat. He said coldly, don't do it in public, it'll be troublesome to deal with the aftermath. You're just jealous that Mengmeng dotes on me. Right. Snakel admitted openly. In this family, compared to Elvis, the first partner, he was even more jealous of Leah, who could always control Toming's emotions. This shameless fellow really carried out the principle of being undefeatable when one was the most despicable. After throwing Leah away, Elvis sat beside Gu Mengmeng and held her little hand, saying, everything I have belongs to you. I won't even allow the air around me to be contaminated by other females. So don't worry, I don't have that bitch-attracting buff. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head in agreement. After all, in the years before she grew up, Snakel was really so extreme that even his own mother did not allow him to speak to him. In order to give her a complete him, he was misunderstood as a mute for so many years. He really didn't have a bitch-sucking buff. Gu Mengmeng retracted her little hand and took the initiative to wrap it around Snake's neck. She patted his back lightly and sniffled as she responded with a mm. Snake then smiled, then pointed at Gregory and said, as for him, he could guard Moda Mountain for 1,000 years without any status, just to exchange for your peace of mind. Although I'm by your side now, I'm just in the awkward position of a guardian beast. The 4 words, I can't get what I want, were like shackles tied around his neck. You are his dream, and he will not rest until he dies. His eyes have never moved away from you. He exudes a strong sense of this bird has an owner from head to toe. No matter what kind of B*tch she is, she wouldn't have laid her eyes on a piece of wood like him who has no blind spots and is impervious to everything. Gu Mengmeng looked up in the direction of Snake's words and met Gregory's deep and passionate eyes. He did not have time to dodge and just met Gu Mengmeng's gaze. Chapter 1664. Gu Mengmeng smiled at Gregory. Her feelings towards him were rather complicated. If it was love, it did not seem to be considered. But the guilt was real. Back then, he had broken his wings and blinded his eyes, sacrificing his life to protect Snake for 1,000 years. After Snake's return, his identity became an embarrassment. If she did not allow him to stay by her side, then he would have nowhere to go. After all, to the beast world, he was someone who had died 1,000 years ago. So Gu Mengmeng gave him the identity of a guardian beast and let him stay. After so many years of interaction, Gu Mengmeng had actually thought of giving him a chance to become a full member. Because no matter if he was a beast pet or a guardian beast, Gregory was already her male. But Gregory was too well behaved and guarded his identity as a guardian beast to the death. If Gu Mengmeng did not give any orders, he would not say a word, as though he did not exist. As for mating, Gu Mengmeng could not possibly give an order. Gregory, come over and lie down for me, I want to clap for love with you. Right? No matter how experienced she was, Gu Mengmeng was still a woman. Such words were too shameful and she really could not say it. So one could not say it, while the other was unwilling to take the initiative. The two of them dragged it on and on. The longer it dragged, the harder it was for them to say it, and slowly, it became like this. Gu Mengmeng shifted her gaze away and looked back at Elvis. Elvis pursed his lips and could not say a word for a while. He was not as eloquent as Leah, nor did he understand the rules of this world like Snake, who had lived here for more than 10 years. He did not know how to communicate with Xiao Meng. He could not even understand what the so-called bitch-sucking buff was. But he only knew one thing. His Xiao Meng was suspecting him of being unfaithful. This was a very serious accusation, but he did not know how to defend himself. That damned female just now had really stuck close to him. Even though he had sent her flying with a kick, she was still trying to stick to him. Could it be that the keep away from strangers aura from his entire body was only effective on wild beasts? The females in this world did not have any sense of danger. Frowning, Elvis tightened his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist. His throat felt tight and his heart was flustered, but he did not know what to say. Staring at Gu Mengmeng for a while, he could only force out a sentence, Xiao Meng. Gu Mengmeng also knew that Elvis was a man of action and it was almost impossible for him to say sweet nothings. But even though she was unhappy, she would not really suspect Elvis of cheating. After all, she knew better than anyone how much her partners loved her. Not wanting to make things difficult for Elvis, she looked up at him and said, I don't like other females getting close to you. All right. Elvis nodded his head seriously and replied, I will eat whoever dares to come near me. Gu Mengmeng was amused by Elvis's serious look. She leaned on Elvis's chest with a smile and said, That's not necessary, but the next time another woman approaches you, tell her, I have a wife, stay away from me. That will do. All right. Elvis always accepted all of Gu Mengmeng's requests without any objections. Chapter 1665. This trip to this small town was not just for sightseeing. Elvis had his eyes on the reward offered by the behind-the-scenes boss and decided to attend his underground fight. So Gu Mengmeng brought along her entire family to accompany Elvis to meet the behind-the-scenes boss. She had thought that the meeting would be held at some office building or office, but she did not expect the other party to suggest a small dock in a remote town. When she reached the designated location, Gu Mengmeng was momentarily dazed. Not because of anything else, but because she recognized the so-called behind-the-scenes boss with one look. Frowning, Gu Mengmeng sat on her little boat and did not move. And her males followed her gaze the moment she frowned. When they saw the person sitting upright, their murderous aura overflowed and could not be concealed. Cole. Leah was the first to murmur softly. He and Elvis had died in Cole's hands before. Although it had been 1,000 years, that grudge had long dissipated in the long river of time, and those past conflicts and grudges had long been put down. But, no matter when, the person who made Gu Mengmeng frown deserved to die. This was the consensus that the 4 males of the Qing family could reach without any discussion. Gu Mengmeng sensed that the atmosphere was not right, and understood that her momentary shock had given her men the wrong hint, so she hurriedly adjusted her expression and said, "Don't be like this, I am not angry." After becoming a beast deity, Gu Mengmeng's state of mind had become much more stable. Many things that she could not understand and could not see through in the past gradually became clear. As the saying goes, those closely involved cannot see clearly. Just like what Qi Xian had said before, Cole was good at scheming and often set up traps to drag her into it. But if one were to think about it carefully, she was the one who ultimately benefited from every situation. It was just that she did not like him, so everything he did was despicable, dirty and unforgivable in her eyes. And in the end, in order to protect her and fulfill her wish to obtain the spirit of the rocky cliffs, he did not hesitate to force her to kill him with her own hands, causing him to sink into the deepest despair and the most painful state. As time passed, the hatred in her heart had long faded to the point that it could no longer be found. If they had not met again today, Gu Mengmeng thought that what Cole was most worried about would have happened. After all, that person had only begged, "Would rather you hate me than forget me." But now, she had forgotten about him. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mengmeng led the way to the dock and sat in front of Cole. Cole tilted his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng. After staying silent for a long time, he spoke in fluent Chinese, "I feel that I should know you, right?" The corners of Gu Mengmeng's lips twitched as she smiled. After not seeing him for so many years, Gu Mengmeng had once thought that Cole was completely dead. She did not expect that his obsession with her would allow him to pass through the cracks in the environment and arrive in her world. Unfortunately, they were not fated to be together. So even though they were in the same world, he still couldn't meet her, and he couldn't even remember her. Perhaps. Gu Mengmeng had never imagined that she could face the man she hated so much. "You've been searching for my man all over the world, we really need to get to know each other." Chapter 1666. Looks like you really like wooden combs. Cole smiled, then took out a silver briefcase and opened it in front of everyone. Turning around to face Gu Mengmeng and the rest, he said, "This is the wooden comb I mentioned in the video. As long as you are willing to fight, you can take it away now. Aren't you afraid that we will go back on our words and run away after taking the item?" Gu Mengmeng asked with a chuckle. Cole laughed hoarsely, and when he looked up at Gu Mengmeng, there was an indescribable gentleness in his gaze, with a hint of pampering that even he himself felt was unexplainable. He said, "He won't." "Oh." Gu Mengmeng was still smiling as she looked at Cole, as if waiting for him to explain. Cole was a little agitated, but he did not understand why he was agitated. He just felt that it was a dream come true to be able to calmly talk to the young lady in front of him about unrelated matters. As a result, he, who had never been fed up with other people's stupidity and was unwilling to explain to anyone, now seemed to have endless patience and was willing to explain every single detail to the young lady. He only hoped that she could sit in front of him with a smile, even for a second longer. "He wants the wooden comb, I want him to fight. Boxing was a piece of cake for him, and it was a piece of cake for me to find more, better, and more special combs. We can provide each other with what the other party needs the most. Isn't this the best cooperation agreement? Of course, he can take the wooden comb and leave now, anyway I can't beat any of them." But it's obviously not a wise move to give up more and better opportunities in the future just for a wooden comb. As Cole spoke, he looked up and his gaze swept past Elvis's face, stopping on Lee's face. He smiled and asked, "What do you think?" Lee's face hung his usual gentle and polite smile. That was his usual expression when facing people other than Gu Mengmeng. He did not reply to Cole's question, because he knew that as the first partner in the family, other than Elvis himself, only Gu Mengmeng had the right to give her opinions and opinions. The clan's rules couldn't be broken. Regardless of whether he was a beast king or some other identity, he couldn't overstep the clan's rules. Even someone like Snake, who never followed the rules, only made a fuss with Elvis about snatching his first partner on the surface. He had never done anything substantial. After all, unless she killed Elvis, she would never be able to snatch the title of first partner away from him. Regardless of how strong Elvis was now or whether they had the ability to kill him. Just the fact that they would not do anything that would upset Meng Meng meant that no one would really covet the position of Elvis's first partner. Since his position was stable, then for the harmony of the family, in order to make Meng Meng more comfortable, they naturally would not do anything to disrupt the order of the family. It was one thing for them to fool around when they had a good relationship. But when it came to serious matters, they followed the rules of the beast world. The first partner could not be disobeyed or disobeyed. Leah ignored Cole, but Cole did not feel awkward. He just turned his gaze back to Gu Mengmeng's face. There was no reason. He just knew that although the four men looked like they were all important figures, the one who could really make the decisions in this situation was this weak and adorable little woman in front of him. Chapter 1667. Gu Mengmeng did not converse too much with Cole. Since the matters of the past had gone with the wind, forgetting each other in the pugilistic world was the best ending for both of them. She did not want Cole to remember those past events in the beast world. His infatuation was a burden to her. Elvis took the wooden comb and left with Gu Mengmeng after asking about the date and location of the underground fight. On the way back to the hotel, Elvis kept hugging Gu Mengmeng. He remained silent for a long time before saying, "I didn't know he was the boss behind the scenes." "It doesn't matter." Gu Mengmeng smiled at Elvis and said, "To me, he is not special. He is the same as anyone else, so you don't have to blame yourself." Yes, Elvis felt very uncomfortable. He had never thought that he would become the opportunity for Gu Mengmeng to meet Cole again. He tightened his grip on Gu Mengmeng and said, "Then do you still want this wooden comb?" "Of course." Gu Mengmeng took the wooden comb from Elvis and smiled. "Didn't you say that whoever gets this wooden comb will be blessed with happiness? You went through so much trouble to get it for me, how can I not want it?" Elvis smiled and kissed Gu Mengmeng's face, saying, "Then I will help you comb your hair." "All right." Gu Mengmeng sat up straight and let Elvis start combing her hair. Strangely enough, Leah was especially talented in cooking, while Elvis's dark cuisine had not improved even after 1,000 years of rebirth. But Elvis's obsession with Gu Mengmeng's hair allowed him, a man who could easily break someone's arm, to learn several exquisite hairstyles in just over a week. He was equipped with a mobile phone, but other than taking pictures of Gu Mengmeng, he could only use it to read various hairstyles from the app. Strangely, he had a photographic memory when it came to hairstyles. As long as he looked at it once, he would be able to do it on Gu Mengmeng's head. Moreover, he would make slight adjustments according to Gu Mengmeng's face shape and clothing. He was practically the Gu family's teacher Tony. What Gu Mengmeng did not know was that the reason why Elvis was so obsessed with her hair was because he had coincidentally seen an ancient popular science post about married couples. He said that although it was common for men in ancient times to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, only the first wife could be called a wife. He also said that only the husband could untie his wife's hair, and then embrace each other, loving each other like glue. If his first wife died early, he only needed to break the wooden comb she used into 2 pieces and place one half of it in her coffin and the other half on his body. In this way, no matter where he went, he would be able to find her and never be separated from her again. Gu Mengmeng had 4 partners. Although Gregory was not official, based on everything he had done for Gu Mengmeng, Elvis still acknowledged him as a family member. Therefore, he had to gather 4 wooden combs. Only then would he be able to have all the people by her side accompany her forever. Although, he also wanted to monopolize it. But he couldn't bear for her to suffer, couldn't bear for her to be incomplete, couldn't bear for her to have even a trace of regret. But he had never told anyone about these. He only monopolized Gu Mengmeng's hair as the first partner and did not allow anyone else to touch it. He was the first wife. Although it was just a title, he was not willing to give it to anyone else. The underground boxing match that Cole had arranged was to be held a week later. As the incident of Elvis killing the boss of the Black Fist in seconds was already known to everyone underground, the moment the news of Elvis participating in the match spread, the entire underground boxing world was in an uproar. It was hard to get a seat in the audience. A match that did not require any marketing to be so popular naturally did not need to be dragged on for too long. Aside. Chapter 1668. Usually, in underground fights, the contestants would not use their real names. They would choose a more impressive nickname, similar to a celebrity's stage name. And Elvis's nickname was given by Cole. Whether it was a coincidence or not, he chose the 2 words Wolf King. When Gu Mengmeng saw this nickname, she could not help but laugh. He really knows how to name things. If you don't like it, I'll ask him to change it. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's slender waist and stood straight behind her, acting as a human cushion so that she could lean into his arms anytime. It would save some energy and make it more comfortable. He had heard the nickname Wolf King for thousands of years and was already numb to it. He did not care about Gu Mengmeng's other identities other than being the first partner. So if she did not like it, he naturally did not mind changing it to something else. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Wolf King is very good. He looks majestic and domineering. Then what about Fox King? Leah was naturally charming. Every frown and smile of his exuded a seductive charm, making one's teeth itch with hatred. One must bite him to vent their anger. Gu Mengmeng snorted at him. You're everywhere. Weren't you the one who insisted on me being the spare tire? Leah frowned in aggrievement. If anything happens to him later, aren't you counting on me to treat him? We haven't even recited our scriptures and you're already hitting a monk? Is there a flirtatious monk like you? Gu Mengmeng pinched Lee's waist. She gritted her teeth and whispered into his ear. Are you afraid that others don't know you're a fox? How dare you act coquettishly in public? If I don't do this, how can I attract your attention? After all, I climbed up from being a beast pet. I naturally don't forget to flirt so that I won't lose your favor. Don't you think so? My Queen Mengmeng, Get lost. Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes at Leah and ignored him. She then turned to look at Elvis. He's just a normal person. Go easy on him. Everyone is just trying to make a living. Don't easily cripple him and ruin his livelihood. All right. Elvis smiled gently, accepting all of Gu Mengmeng's requests. But Gu Mengmeng changed the topic and said with a serious expression, you are also not allowed to get hurt. If I see the other party injuring you, don't expect me to agree to let you join the underground boxing anymore. Cole had already shown the other wooden comb to Elvis. If he won this round and was willing to continue the next round, he would give him the goddess comb that he had obtained from the ancient tomb in Z country. It was said that it was the bone comb used by Nuwa, thus, it was almost certain that Elvis would have his next fight a month after this one. Elvis wanted that goddess's comb because it was said to have the ability to attract good fortune and avoid calamity. It was stained with Nuwa's fairy aura and even demons and ghosts had to avoid it. Although he had never seen a demon before, and the 4 of them should be the legendary demons and they were at the top level, he was willing to fight for it for Gu Mengmeng regardless if it was real or fake. Don't worry. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead. I won't let myself get hurt. With that, Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng to the spectator stand on the 2nd floor. That was the VIP viewing room that Cole had specially prepared for Gu Mengmeng. It had soundproof single-sided bulletproof glass. Even if Gu Mengmeng could see the arena clearly from the second floor, the people outside would not be able to see her. Out of topic. Chapter 1669. The audience downstairs had already entered the arena one after another. Other than Gu Mengmeng and her family sitting in the VIP room on the second floor, Cole also came uninvited. After all, this was his home ground and Gu Mengmeng did not have the right to chase him away, so she did not say much and allowed Cole to sit beside her. The sofas here were all independent seats, so even though Cole was sitting beside her, there was actually a small coffee table between them, so they were not really sitting next to each other. And Gu Mengmeng's thoughts were all on the arena below, so she did not have any extra thoughts to share with Cole. The surrounding lights dimmed with a click, and the audience became quiet. The spotlights suddenly lit up, then Elvis walked out from the resting area for the fighters. The audience was in an uproar for 2 seconds, then suddenly became quiet again, as if they were looking at the strange clothes that Elvis was wearing, printed with the words, "I have a wife, you are away from me." She came to watch a boxing match but was still stuffed with dog food. She really wanted to curse. The staff used the walkie-talkie to communicate with Cole, saying that Elvis insisted on not removing the clothes, to which Cole only replied with, "Let him be," and did not say anything else. Elvis stood in the middle of the arena, looking straight at the second floor. Even though there was only one side of the glass, he knew that his Xiao Meng was looking at him from there. Just thinking about it made his mood improve. The resting room door on the other side opened, and a man wearing a hooded cape walked out. Gu Mengmeng instinctively took a look, and just one look was enough to make her shocked. Another acquaintance? Leah also laughed softly, his large tail appearing in front of Cole without any scruples, circling around Gu Mengmeng's waist. He sat on the armrest of Gu Mengmeng's little sofa, one hand on the back of the sofa behind Gu Mengmeng, while the other held Gu Mengmeng's little hand and played with it. He smiled. "It's actually him. This time, Elvis will not only tear off one of his arms, he might not even have the life to leave the arena." Snake had Gu Mengmeng's shared memories, so he also recognized this person who was on the arena. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and his eyes burned with a sinister emerald green color. His voice was cold, and he said, "Why don't we change the person? Let me see what kind of fun underground boxing is like. You are the Prince of F country, how can you appear in an underground fighting ring? Don't create more trouble." Gu Mengmeng held her forehead and said, "How can there be such a coincidence in this world?" Cole looked at Gu Mengmeng in confusion. He could not understand their conversation, but he understood that they seemed to know the person who challenged Elvis. So Cole pointed to the side of the arena and said, "His woman owes me a lot of money. I was going to sell her to a sex slave agency to repay the debt." But this man stood out and said that he was willing to challenge Elvis. If he won, he would take his reward as repayment of the debt. If he lost, he would take his compensation as repayment of the debt. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, "If you win, you have to pay with your money, and if you lose, you have to pay with your life." He really hasn't changed at all. For a woman like that, he can always risk his life. "You know her?" Cole asked softly. Gu Mengmeng did not answer, but asked back, "That woman, how much money does she owe you?" "Not much, just 4 million USD. Cole answered honestly. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "I will return this 4 million for her, but I want to let that man live." Aside from the topic. Chapter 1670. All right. Cole did not even have to think before he agreed. After agreeing, Cole was a little puzzled. He was not puzzled why he agreed, but puzzled that not only did he agree, he even wanted to add, "You don't have to return the money." What puzzled him the most was that he did not dare to say what he wanted to add. He did not know why, but he seemed to know that this young girl in front of him, under her polite and distant appearance, had a strong sense of rejection towards him. If he displayed too much intimacy and friendliness, she would immediately hide far away. So if he still wanted to see her, he could not cross certain boundaries. Even though they did not know each other, he knew very well where those boundaries that could not be seen or touched were. This was very strange, really very strange. Thinking about this, Cole's gaze towards Gu Mengmeng deepened. But Gu Mengmeng did not have the heart to care about what Cole was thinking. Her gaze was fixated on the two people on the arena. Clearly, Elvis had also recognized his opponent. His face, which had been cold to everyone other than Gu Mengmeng for thousands of years, actually cracked into a smile. But that smile was so eerie that it made people shiver in fear. The reason why the audience bought tickets was to witness Elvis's breathtaking, instant kill. But the situation changed because of his opponent's appearance. Elvis did not seem to be in a hurry to end the battle as quickly as before. Instead, he started torturing his opponent on the arena as if he was having fun. It was not wrong for him to promise not to hurt his opponent easily. But this did not include the fact that his opponent had hurt Gu Mengmeng before, and had almost broken her neck. Elvis squeezed his opponent's shoulder blades forcefully, causing his opponent's arms to hang limply by his side. His pained cry made the audience extremely excited because of the bloody scene, but it did not evoke any pity from Elvis. Then, Elvis raised his leg and crushed both of his knees, causing him to lose all interest in life like a puppet with its strings cut. Elvis grabbed his neck and lifted him up. When their eyes were at the same level, his azure blue eyes squinted and he instinctively bared his teeth. His opponent's eyes were already filled with red veins and were even bulging slightly. His limbs did not have any ability to resist and he could only let Elvis deprive him of air bit by bit, putting him to death. He had seen Elvis's previous match and knew how strong of an opponent he was. Hence, he did not expect to leave this arena alive. But he did not understand why Elvis did not finish him off cleanly like how he did with his previous opponent. Instead, he deliberately tortured him with hatred, as if he wanted him to clearly feel his life slipping away every second before he died. Had he ever offended someone like this Shura before? Hubby. Gu Mengmeng pushed open the window on the second floor and called out softly. Although the people around the arena were making a ruckus, the Beast King's hearing was extremely good. Moreover, Elvis had always been sensitive to Gu Mengmeng's voice, so he naturally would not miss her call. Releasing his grip, Elvis threw his opponent, who was limp like a puddle of mud, onto the ground and went up to the second floor without looking back. Chapter 1671. In the eyes of the audience, the dying man was not a life, but a flaw in the competition. It was as if his death was supposed to be the climax of the day, but it ended abruptly, which was rather disappointing. But after all, the outcome had already been determined. Even if it was an underground boxing match, there was no rule that said one had to be killed to end the match. Moreover, the Wolf King had already left. Their grumbles could not change that man's mind. So although it was a pity, the audience still gradually left under the guidance of the staff. After all the irrelevant people had left, Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng down from the second floor. Other than the 4 men from the Gu family, Cole also followed behind. That scene was a little strange. Those 5 men clearly had the aura of a king, but they were willing to become stars because of that woman, just to hold her in their palms and shine with her brilliance. In this scene, the petite figure became the finishing touch, causing people to involuntarily focus their gazes on her. Cole glanced over and someone moved a small sofa over and placed it on the stage. The blood had long been wiped clean, but the smell of blood lingered for a long time. Gu Mengmeng sat on the small sofa, looking at the man lying on the ground and the trembling woman kneeling beside him like a queen. Is it worth it? Gu Mengmeng asked this question without any head or tail. The man raised his head with difficulty and met Gu Mengmeng's eyes. He was a little dazed, as if he knew the woman in front of him, but could not remember when he had seen her before. Strangely, even if the other party's words were without head or tail, he seemed to understand what she meant. Although it was difficult, he still curled his lips and looked at the woman kneeling beside him. He tried his best to smile and said, "For my own woman, nothing is not worth it." Gu Mengmeng gave a helpless chuckle. Some people were just like that. No matter how much time had passed, that infatuation, that foolishness would never change. So, Gu Mengmeng shifted her gaze to the woman beside him and asked in a seemingly nonchalant manner, "This man is already crippled now. I think he will no longer have the ability to take care of you in the future. Not only can he not earn money to repay your debts, he will even become your burden. Why don't we make a deal? You sell him to me, and I'll pay back the $4 million you owe me for you. How about that?" "You. Why do you want to buy him?" The woman seemed to be very afraid of Gu Mengmeng, so much so that even though the man could not even crawl up, she still instinctively hid beside the man, as if that would make her feel safe. Gu Mengmeng prodded herself under her chin, as if she was thinking about a question for a long time. Then, she said, "Nothing much, I guess I'll just cut open my stomach and sell my organs." After all, the risk and cost of transporting live bodies is lower, and the price can be higher. "No, I'm not selling." The woman suddenly took a step forward and opened her arms. She was clearly trembling in fear, but she bit her lower lip to prevent herself from retreating. "I will return the $4 million. No matter what, I will return it. I'm not selling Quentin, not selling." Gu Mengmeng smiled at her reaction. It seemed that his stupidity had not changed. However, she was no longer who she was in the past. If that was the case, they might have a chance to turn things around and not repeat the mistakes of the past. "Oh, then tell me, how are you going to repay that $4 million? Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes and probed. "Out of topic, yes, that's right. The familiar person who was beaten up was Quentin. Did you guess correctly, my little baby?" Chapter 1672. The woman bit her lower lip, then looked up at Gu Mengmeng and said, "Wait a while, just wait a while more. When our children are cured, I am willing to go with you. You can sell me to a sex slave house or sell my organs. As long as I see my children and Quentin safe and sound, I will go with you." "Children?" Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes and asked softly. The woman seemed to have been touched at the softest spot in her heart. She nodded and said, "Quentin and I have 3 children, but these 3 children were not in good health from the moment they were born. In order to cure them, Quentin and I spent all our savings. My eldest son was found to have kidney failure and had to get a new kidney to save his life. He could not wait for the queue for a kidney source, so I could only pay a high price to buy an underground kidney source for him. That's why I owe a debt of $4 million. You're and Quentin's children?" Gu Mengmeng asked. The woman nodded and looked at Quentin with a gentle gaze. Gu Mengmeng leaned back and smiled softly, saying, "Leah." Leah stiffened his neck and said unwillingly, "I hold grudges very well. It's not a problem to kill him, but to save him, humph. Then who was the one who created the opportunity for him?" Gu Mengmeng's light sentence made Leah lose his temper instantly. Back then, he was the one who deliberately spoiled Nina and spoiled her more and more. He allowed Quentin to lay his hands on Gu Mengmeng and he was the one who appeared at the crucial moment. Even though he had not fallen in love with Gu Mengmeng at that time, but in the end, Nina and Quentin's tragedy was largely due to him adding fuel to the fire. He did not feel guilty. To Leah, other than Gu Mengmeng, everyone else was a chess piece on the chessboard. There was no turning back once he made a move. He did not feel guilty towards Nina and Quentin, but he did towards Gu Mengmeng. So, when Gu Mengmeng said that, Leah could not say anything else. He twitched his lips and walked to Quentin's side, starting to check on his injuries. Nina and Quentin did not understand what she meant and could only look at Gu Mengmeng blankly. The corners of Gu Mengmeng's lips curled up as she smiled. "I have to make up for the sins my man has done. Leah will heal Quentin's injuries and we will arrange for professionals to treat your sons." Gu Mengmeng was talking about how Leah had ruined an entire family for his own goals. But Nina and Quentin did not know that, they just thought that it was because Elvis had hurt Quentin too badly that Gu Mengmeng could not bear it. Thank you. Nina was so grateful that she wanted to grab Gu Mengmeng's hand. But Elvis frowned and raised his leg, wanting to kick. Cole's reaction was faster. He stepped in front of Nina and said, "I can arrange a job for you in the boxing arena. It might be a little tough, but the pay is not bad. Are you willing?" Nina looked up at Cole and nodded hurriedly. I'm willing. Thank you so much. I'm not afraid of hard work. As long as I can make money to treat my son, I'm not afraid of any hardship." Cole smiled and did not say anything else. He just signaled Nina to retreat back to her original position and not go near Gu Mengmeng. Although Nina did not understand why, she still retreated back obediently. Then, she looked at Gu Mengmeng and said, "Kind lady, I, Nina, will remember your kindness for life. No matter what you need in the future, I'm willing to be your slave. I will definitely repay you." Aside from the topic, who could guess why Nina and Quentin's children were always in poor health? Chapter 1673. In the future. Gu Mengmeng smiled softly and said, "In the future, it's better if we don't meet again." With that, Gu Mengmeng gave Elvis a look and Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng out of the arena. Leah gave Quentin basic emergency treatment and then asked Cole to arrange for someone to send him to Lee's private clinic. Because of Elvis and Quentin's fight, the tickets for the next month's fight were even more popular. Those who managed to buy the tickets were naturally in a good mood, while those who couldn't were full of complaints. Requests for a rematch rose one after another, but no matter how many good wooden combs Cole took out, none of them caught Elvis's eye. He only agreed to fight again next month, as long as that goddess bone comb. Because Gu Mengmeng said that in the beast world, it was actually their family that harmed Nina and Quentin, so she requested Leah to personally treat Quentin's injuries and their child. Leah couldn't reject Gu Mengmeng's request, so even though he was extremely unwilling, he still stayed in the private clinic to treat Quentin's family. It was just that he didn't charge medical fees, but there was an especially strange rule, which was that family members were not allowed to visit. To put it bluntly, it meant that Nina was not allowed to enter his clinic, or else he wouldn't treat her. As for Snake, he was the prince of F country after all. Although it was absurd for him to leave his family matters behind and run to Z country to study in a third-rate university, but his family members couldn't object to it, so they just let him be. But now that he was back, the family matters started to pester him again. After all, he was in charge of the family, who would dare to make decisions on their own? Big and small matters piled up, causing Snake to be unable to attend to them. Gu Mengmeng smiled and told Snake to focus on earning money to support the family. After all, she had just squandered 4 million USD. Snake was the only one in the family with financial resources, so he naturally couldn't slack off. Snake couldn't do anything to Gu Mengmeng, so he could only agree. Then, he sat in the study to deal with the mountain of work. As for Gregory, it was rare for him to take the initiative to speak to Gu Mengmeng, saying that he wanted to visit Quentin at Lee's clinic. Gu Mengmeng was a little surprised. She knew that Elvis and Leah knew Quentin. Snake had shared memories with her, so it wasn't strange that he knew Quentin. But Gregory, Gu Mengmeng thought for a while before realizing that Gregory was a bird and so was Quentin. They were born together on Moda Mountain, how could they not know each other? Nodding her head, Gu Mengmeng said considerately, "It's all right, I have Elvis with me. You can go." Just like that, Gu Mengmeng and Elvis had a rare couple time. As for being able to enjoy Gu Mengmeng to himself openly, Elvis was very happy to see it happen. Gu Mengmeng didn't want Elvis to hug her, instead, she held hands like a normal couple. She looked up at Elvis and said, "Hubby, strictly speaking, we got married before dating, and then we had a child before we even had any sweet time together. The process was extremely rushed. It's rare that I'm free today. Why don't we go on a date?" Elvis chuckled and said, "That's right, I have been promoted from old godmother to boss, then hubby, but I have never been your boyfriend." But Leah and Snake had been. Chapter 1674. Gu Mengmeng smiled as she tiptoed and kissed Elvis on the cheek. "Hey, let's go fill in the blanks today, alright? Alright. Elvis could only give Gu Meng Meng his endless indulgence. No matter what her request was, he would only reply with this one word. Gu Meng Meng leaned her head on Elvis's shoulder. As they walked, she thought about where to go for a date. The cinema did not seem to be a good choice. Most of the movies here were in F country's language and there were no subtitles. Gu Meng Meng and Elvis basically could not understand them. Eating was also not a good idea, because Elvis's appetite was extraordinarily exaggerated. Gu Meng Meng could not bear to let him not eat his fill just to accommodate the atmosphere, but if she let him eat to his heart's content, they might be surrounded by reporters called by their boss for an interview. After thinking about it, Gu Meng Meng finally decided to go to the amusement park. Although it was a little childish, Elvis had never been there before. It was always good to have something new. Although Snake could not accompany them, he had arranged for a private car. So Gu Meng Meng and Elvis were quickly sent to the entrance of the most famous amusement park in the area. Gu Meng Meng bought the tickets and the two of them entered the amusement park happily. Elvis did not really like the crowded atmosphere. The Beast King's hearing and sense of smell were too sensitive. Everything here made him feel noisy and the air was filled with all sorts of strange smells, making him uncomfortable. But looking at Gu Meng Meng's sparkling big eyes, he felt that these discomforts were insignificant and could be tolerated. He wrapped his arms around Gu Meng Meng's shoulders and said in a low voice, "There are too many people. Let me protect you so that you don't get separated." Gu Meng Meng nodded and responded with a "yeah." Her gaze drifted around and Gu Meng Meng immediately set her eyes on the most thrilling roller coaster in the world. If it was in the past, she would not dare to challenge this kind of thing. But during those years as the messenger of the beast deity in the beast world, she felt like jumping off a building every time she saw Wang Xiaoxin. After a few times, she became more daring. Most importantly, she wanted to see Elvis panicking later on. It would be extremely interesting. Although Elvis had never played it before, he had a rough idea of what it would feel like when he queued up. She queued for a long time, but this did not diminish Gu Meng Meng's enthusiasm. When the safety belt was buckled, Gu Meng Meng was still very excited. Turning her head to look at Elvis, she held his big hand and said in an especially imposing manner, "If you're afraid, call me out. I'll protect you, understand?" Elvis curled his lips, his expression calm and doting. Should he respond with a cry of panic to satisfy her little desire? All right, in order to coax his precious Xiao Meng, he had long thrown away his pride and whatnot. All right. Elvis replied concisely, before grabbing Gu Meng Meng's little hand, holding it tightly in his palm. The entire roller coaster ride took about 4 minutes. When they returned to the starting point after one round, other than feeling a little dizzy from the spinning, Elvis did not feel particularly scared. Chapter 1675. When the staff came up to help remove the safety belt, Elvis felt his arm being pricked by someone. He raised his head in alarm and looked at the staff who had his cap pressed down to the very bottom. That person revealed an evil smile and said in broken Chinese, "You woman, if you are fine, be obedient." Elvis immediately turned back to look at Gu Meng Meng and realized that she had already been helped down from the other side of the roller coaster by the staff. The staff said that Gu Meng Meng had a heat stroke and needed to rest while taking her away from the staff passageway. Elvis wanted to chase after her but realized that the safety belt was still fastened tightly in front of his chest. He wanted to push the safety belt away but it did not budge at all. Only then did he realize that he could not exert any strength, and the angrier he got, the more dizzy he felt. Even his vision started to blur and he clenched his teeth but could not support his consciousness that was slowly fading away. Only when Elvis had completely fainted did the staff unfasten the safety belt. He turned back and a few people who were pretending to be tourists came over and carried Elvis away. And all these did not attract anyone's attention in the amusement park. When she woke up again, Gu Meng Meng felt weak all over and her eyelids were heavy and dry. She did not even have the strength to lift her head and rub her eyes. You're awake." An unfamiliar man's voice sounded from not far away. Gu Mengmeng turned her head and used her peripheral vision to see a silver-haired man sitting on a European-style armchair not far away. She guessed that he was about 60 years old. He did not look old and instead had the demeanor of a godfather in a gangster movie. The man sat there with his hands crossed and supporting himself with a walking stick. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with a faint smile. His Chinese pronunciation was not good, but it was considered above average among foreigners and he had no problem in basic communication. "Who are you?" Gu Mengmeng's voice was extremely weak and she panted after saying just 3 simple words. "Harold." The silver-haired old man said his name in F language like a gentleman and then translated it in Chinese. "You can also call me Harold." Purpose. Gu Mengmeng's physical strength was limited, but she had no choice but to deal with the man to gain more time to regain control of her body. As long as she could move her hands, all she had to do was to scratch her ears and cheeks or beat her chest and the 4 men in her family would immediately appear here. By then, I don't care if you are Harold or Hello Kitty. They would crush you into dregs. I mean no harm. Harold said, "I know you are Prince Snake's fiancé and I have no intention of becoming enemies with Prince Snake. So, even though it was a bit abrupt to invite you over, at least I still maintained my gentlemanly demeanor." He meant that he was already doing Snake a favor by putting her on the bed and making her unable to move. What else could he do? Was he going to be locked in the dungeon with a tiger stool and chilly water? Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said, "When Snake comes, you can explain it to him like this and see if he will listen." Harold did not seem to take Gu Mengmeng's threat to heart. He did not want to be enemies with Snake, but that did not mean he was afraid of him. Otherwise, he would not have dared to target Gu Mengmeng. Making a "so what" expression, Harold did not continue Gu Mengmeng's words and instead revealed his true motive. "As long as you are willing to help me with a small matter, I will naturally send you back with my sincerest apologies." Out of topic, did you guys think that I would obediently hand out sweets just because I was an outsider? How could that be possible? I am so mischievous, but don't worry, the men in our family are all very strong. Anyone who tries to scheme against them will be courting death. Chapter 1676. The threat was obvious. If Gu Mengmeng obediently helped him with this small favor, he would let her go and give her an expensive apology. On the other hand, if she did not agree, then he would not let her go today. Furthermore, when he kidnapped her in the amusement park, everyone was wearing the uniform of the amusement park. Even if Snake found out about the amusement park, it would take him a lot of effort to trace it back to him. By then, she might have disappeared from this world forever. What else could Snake do in a situation where the dead could not testify? Gu Mengmeng smiled softly, without a trace of fear on her face. Harold's words carried a kind of self-evident craziness, arrogance, and even certainty. This was not the first time he had done something like this. Or perhaps, in his eyes, a young and ignorant little girl like her was really easy to scare. But he did not know that the young girl before him had lived for 1,000 years in the other world. This level of threat was really nothing in front of her. Admittedly, Gu Mengmeng did not have the powers of a beast king in the past. She could not use her slender hands to crush this little rascal who was pretending to be deep in front of her. But, her partner could. "I wonder what Mr. Harold would like me to help with?" Gu Mengmeng said as she tried to move her fingers. Very good, the effects of the drug were gradually fading and her body was slowly regaining its self-control. "It's very simple. As long as you can convince the bodyguard that Prince Snake arranged for you to stay under me and become my fighter, I will naturally give you an equivalent reward." "Oh, you want to buy my man?" Gu Mengmeng used both her hands to support her upper body on the bed. Harold was rather surprised to see Gu Mengmeng sitting up. But when he thought about how he did not want to offend Snake, he drugged Gu Mengmeng a little lighter than usual. Hence, the surprise flashed across his face and did not stay for long. No. I don't want to buy your man, I just want to buy your bodyguard." Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, "Since you want to buy him, why don't you talk to him directly?" Pausing for 2 seconds, Gu Gu Mengmeng realized that an undetectable hint of awkwardness flashed across Harold's face. Thus, he understood and said, "Oh, I did talk to him, but he didn't listen to you at all. Let me guess. You must have used threats and carrots, but he just wouldn't budge. You couldn't do anything to him, so you used me as a breakthrough point, right?" Harold coughed twice. Clearly, he felt a little ashamed that he couldn't do anything to a man, so he turned his attention to a little girl. But there was no other way. He wanted that man. Harold had been doing whatever he wanted in the underworld for so many years, but it had been a long time since he had that kind of crazy desire to conquer. He desperately wanted to see this arrogant and sinister man submit to him, become his most humble servant, the most docile servant, and the most vigilant guard. Gu Mengmeng did not miss the fervent look in Harold's eyes. She had seen this look too many times in the past 1,000 years. Raising her slender hand, Gu Mengmeng gently touched her collarbone. She smiled faintly and said, "Since you want him, you should tell him in person. If you don't even have the courage to face him, how can you do it?" Aside from the topic, next episode, Summon Elvis. Was this considered a literary blockage? Chapter 1677. With that, Gu Mengmeng used her fingernails to lightly scratch the mark of the black wolf. A slight prickling sensation accompanied by a ray of white light. Elvis appeared behind Harold like an emissary from hell. Gu Mengmeng smiled softly and did not move at all. She watched as Harold's pupils trembled violently. Many years of living on the edge of a knife had made him more sensitive to danger than ordinary people. The fear in his heart was written all over his face, but he did not have the courage to turn back. The thick smell of blood enveloped his entire body and the cracking sound sounded like someone was moving the joints in his neck in preparation for an attack. The hand holding onto the walking stick had already started to tremble. He took a deep breath and suddenly swung it backwards. There was a button on the walking stick. After pressing it, a sharp blade would pop out from the side of the walking stick. If this full force slash landed, it should be able to slice a person into two. However, the blade he swung out did not touch anyone. He looked behind him in confusion and looked around. He did not believe that his senses would be wrong. The smell of blood was so thick, how could it be an illusion? What happened? You're covered in dirt. Gu Mengmeng's voice rang from the side of the bed. She sounded nonchalant, as if she was not aware that she was being kidnapped. It was as if she was talking to her husband in her own home. Harold suddenly turned back and raised his walking stick with both hands, looking at Gu Mengmeng who was lying on the bed defensively. And with this turn, he also saw that bewitching man covered in blood. The sinister aura around him was like that of a king stepping on thousands of skeletons in hell. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, emitting a cold light like the Grim Reaper's scythe. That pair of azure demonic eyes lifted up slightly, casually looking at Harold's nervous and flustered defense. As if looking at a dead man, he said calmly, "He's locked in a strange room. The walls are electrified, so he can't come out. I was worried that something would happen to you, but you did not summon me. So I was bored to death and bit a few males who came to my door to kill some time while I was waiting." "You transformed?" Gu Mengmeng completely ignored Harold. She only used her little hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of Elvis's mouth. She pouted coquettishly and said, "So dirty." No. No matter how fierce his murderous aura was, when his gaze met Gu Mengmeng's, there would always be a unique sense of gentleness. Casually transforming in this world will attract trouble. He wasn't afraid of trouble, but he didn't want Xiao Meng to be unable to stay in the world she loved because of the trouble he caused. Therefore, although he could open the door with one claw as long as he showed his true form, he held back in order not to cause trouble for Xiao Meng. Gu Mengmeng understood what Elvis was thinking, so she gave him an approving smile and patted his hand. "This little old man wants to buy you. Do you think I should offer a sky-high price to scam him? After I take the money, you come back?" Gu Mengmeng's tone was too obviously sarcastic and teasing. When she raised her head to look at Harold again, she could only feel his nervousness, wariness and fear. It was a stark contrast to the two people sitting on the bed, teasing each other affectionately. It was even a little comical. Chapter 1678. The Gu Mengmeng now was no longer the young lady who cried the entire night at the bonfire party during her coming-of-age ceremony when she had just arrived in the beast world. She had faced too much bloodshed in the beast world, so much so that she could think rationally and calmly when faced with life and death. Just like now. Elvis jumped up from the bed and pounced towards Harold. Harold immediately waved the walking stick in his hand and slashed at Elvis with the blade. But he was just a normal person. How could he fight against Elvis, who had the power of a beast king and had been through hundreds of battles? Before he could swing his walking stick halfway, he was already firmly stepped on by Elvis's four limbs. Harold was so shocked that he was tongue-tied. He could not understand how a human could suddenly turn into a huge wolf. The sharp fangs and dripping saliva in front of him magnified his fear infinitely. Only someone who had been squashed by a wolf at such a close distance would understand how terrifying that feeling of near death was. Elvis did not have the leisure to admire his struggle before death. He cleanly bit off his neck and threw his body out of the window. Then, he transformed back into a human, without a single speck of dirt on him. He was naked, with a head of thick black hair casually draped behind him. It was like a cloud dyed with ink, giving off a unique charm. The hideous bloodstains in the room were set off by the gentleness that only belonged to Gu Mengmeng, making it look like two red spider lilies blossoming on both sides of the yellow springs. And he was a fairy standing among the flowers. Dangerous, yet full of temptation. Because of his transformation, Elvis could no longer wear the clothes he was originally wearing. So, Gu Mengmeng casually pulled down the curtains and asked Elvis to tear it into a piece of cloth of suitable size. Then, she wrapped it around her waist to act as a temporary beast-skin skirt. This way of dressing made Elvis feel at ease, much more comfortable than those clothes that restricted his movements. "Wait for me here, I'll go settle some things and be back soon." Gu Mengmeng chuckled and asked, "Do you need me to call Leah over to help you?" Elvis shook his head gently, then planted a light kiss on Gu Mengmeng's forehead. "I'm your first partner, I must have the ability to protect you independently." Gu Mengmeng knew that males had their own pride. In the beast world, they must have the ability to hunt and defend against external enemies. In modern times, they also needed to have the strength to protect their women. She could not stop Elvis from doing it. He was a wolf, not a pet dog that she kept by her side. She would never keep him on a dog's leash and make him wag his tail at her side. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and kissed him lightly. "Be careful." Elvis nodded and kissed her lips again. He told her to lie down and rest for a while. After all, the effects of the medicine in her body had not completely dissipated. After tucking her in, Elvis turned around and left. With Harold's head in his hand, he walked out of Gu Mengmeng's room, leaving bloody footprints behind. Gu Mengmeng did not resist the control of the drug in her body anymore. She relaxed her nerves and slowly fell asleep. When she woke up again, the four men in the house had gathered and were sitting by her bed. "Drink some water." The moment she opened her eyes, Elvis helped her sit up and sent warm water to her lips, gently moistening her dry throat. Out of topic, to explain, Harold's neck was bitten off by Elvis and his body was thrown out of the window, but his head was still in the room. That was why it was said that he carried Harold's head out. Babies, don't be confused. Why did you say he carried his head after throwing it out? Chapter 1679. Gu Mengmeng sat up and drank some water. Leah walked up to her, cupped her little face and kissed it. "I tested your blood just now. It's just a normal anesthetic. You just need to drink more water to metabolize it and you'll be fine." "Yeah." Gu Mengmeng nodded. Actually, the effects of the anesthetic had almost worn off and she did not feel much after sleeping. "When did you guys arrive?" Gu Mengmeng looked at the three men who did not look too good and asked. Snake laughed coldly, asking, when did you hope that we would arrive? Or, did you hope that we would not appear at all? Was he angry? Gu Mengmeng blinked her eyes and looked at Snake's cold smile, feeling a little guilty. How could that be? I just because Elvis is your first partner, you let him do whatever he wants, isn't that right? Snake'll interrogated. Gu Mengmeng shrunk her neck. She knew that she would definitely be scolded for not calling all her partners over at the first instance after such a thing happened. Her partners were just that weird. If you had good food to eat, fun to play with or any other good things, it was fine not to call them. But if you didn't call them when you were in trouble and especially when you were in danger, ha 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 ha, come at me if you have any complaints. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms, his entire body exuding a strong aura. He would not allow anyone to criticize or lecture Gu Mengmeng, no matter what she did wrong. Moreover, it was him who did not protect Gu Mengmeng that gave Harold the chance to take advantage of her today. Xiao Meng did not do anything wrong, why did she have to listen to others? Oh, you want to use your status as the first partner to pressure me again? Snake did not budge an inch. In terms of aura, he had been the Beast King for 1,000 years longer than Elvis. How could he lose to a male that he had once scolded as trash? So what if I am? Elvis was no longer the little wolf beast that could not retaliate against Snake. He would not back down in front of anyone when it came to protecting Gu Mengmeng and not letting her suffer. The authority of the first partner cannot be questioned. Does that include letting the female be in danger? Snake was not angry, just a simple sentence that stabbed straight into Elvis's heart. Today, he was the only one here. He should be protecting Xiao Meng with all his might. However, Harold had kidnapped Xiao Meng right under his nose. Clenching his fists, Elvis said coldly, "It's my fault for not protecting Xiao Meng well. What do you want? Come at me directly, don't make things difficult for Xiao Meng." Snake laughed softly and said, "Come for you? Alright, let's see how much raging flames you just received today. Let's see how long it will take for me to wipe this gang off the face of the earth." Elvis did not mind at all and said, "I'll be happy to keep you company." Gu Mengmeng rubbed her temples and said, "Alright, the two of you have not fought for almost 800 years. Is there a need to make such a big fuss over such a small matter today?" Snake frowned and looked at Gu Mengmeng, asking, "Are you blaming me for making a mountain out of a molehill?" Chapter 1680. Snake straightened his body and faced Gu Mengmeng, saying, "Small matter? Then do you know how the three of us came here?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head and looked at Elvis in confusion. Elvis pursed his lips and sighed deeply, saying, "I was handling the matter of receiving the fiery flames in the front hall. Harold's son Kiddo, the man whose arm was broken by me in the first Black Fist fight, sneaked into your room and tried to hurt you. The tip of the knife touched the mark on your chest and summoned Snake over." Gu Mengmeng was also shocked. She lowered her head and looked again. Indeed, there was a red dot on the head of the snake on her chest. It should be a wound. Snake then continued, "The moment I came over, I saw the dagger stabbing into your heart. Gregory, me, Leah and Elvis, including your own lives, were all hanging by a thread. To you, this is just a small matter, isn't it?" Gu Mengmeng's aura instantly dropped and she said pitifully, "I don't know. Of course you don't know." Snake laughed coldly and said, "If you knew, you would have summoned your most trusted first partner back to protect you, wouldn't you? In your eyes, only he is your partner and only he is worthy of your trust. If not for him, you would rather be alone in a state of protection than to summon me or Leah to protect you when you meet with trouble. Huh, just how much trust do you have in him? As long as he is in the same building as you, you believe that he can protect you safe and sound. He is clearly not by your side, but you can still fall asleep defenselessly." Elvis obviously could not stand Snake criticizing Gu Mengmeng like that, but Gu Mengmeng could hear the fear hidden behind Snake's accusation. Pulling Elvis, who was about to explode, Gu Mengmeng opened her arms wide at Snake, gesturing for him to hug her. Although Snake was extremely angry, he was also extremely uneasy. So, without another word, he pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms and hugged her fiercely. He wished he could bury her in his heart and protect her at all times, so as to quell that fear. You were asleep, and I had to check your breathing every 2 or 3 minutes. I was so afraid that if I came half a second late, the dagger would have pierced your heart. I was so afraid that you weren't asleep but dead. You heartless, bad girl, how dare you protect him? Gu Mengmeng patted Snake's back gently and comforted him. I know I was wrong. I won't do such a heartless thing again. Don't worry, I'm fine now, right? Actually, Snake did not really want to fight with Elvis. He just urgently needed to vent the uneasiness in his heart, otherwise he would go crazy. As for Elvis, perhaps he also needed a battle like this to let his guilt be vented. Liar. Snake scolded softly. You're just a little liar. Your words cannot be trusted. Gu Mengmeng laughed softly. Elvis and Leah had long known that she was a little liar. She thought that at least in front of Snake and Gregory, she could maintain her credibility. Now, it seemed like she had gone bankrupt again. She looked at Gregory with a faint gaze and thought to herself. Yeah, this is the only fruit left. At least in Gregory's eyes, my credit limit cannot be overdrawn anymore. Aside from the topic, from now on, I, Elvis, have become the leader of the triads in F country. There should be applause here. Chapter 1681. After appeasing Elvis and Snake, Gu Mengmeng then turned towards Leah, who had been very quiet all along. This fellow was not behaving like a demon, but his style was not right. Leah, who caught Gu Mengmeng's gaze, then waved his tail and walked seductively to Gu Mengmeng's side. He half laid on Gu Mengmeng's knees and said in a flirtatious and coquettish manner, "You finally remembered me?" Her scalp went numb. Elvis and Snake were both violent men. There was basically nothing that could not be solved with a fight. If there was, then they would fight twice. At most, once the door was closed, Gu Mengmeng would bring them back to the grassland illusion and let them fight to their heart's content. But Leah was different. If he was annoyed, he would definitely torture Gu Mengmeng's body. Sometimes, Gu Mengmeng would rather Leah hang her up and give her a good beating, but Leah would not do it. He would only stop after she remembered it for the rest of her life. Leah, Gu Mengmeng's smile was uglier than crying. She begged for mercy by calling out his mushy nickname, her eyes filled with fawning. Lee's large tail was wagging behind him. The smile on his face was still warm. It did not deepen or lessen because of Gu Mengmeng's fawning. And Gu Mengmeng recognized this smile. He only smiled like this when he was angry. The angrier he was, the warmer his smile was. I promise, this is the last time, really. I'm not going to be alone anymore. Sometimes, Gu Mengmeng would think that if one of the 4 men in her family changed his profession to torture and extort confessions, then Leah would be the best. He did not need any torture at all. He just had to look at you with a smile and you would want to confess. You said the same thing when you jumped off the cliff on the Moda Mountains. Lee's smile did not diminish. His tone was warm and even his eyes were filled with the calmness of the years, but he was secretly bringing up the past. Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Lee's neck and said coquettishly, Leah, it's not good for you to always hold grudges in your notebook. It's already thousands of years ago. Can you not mention it anymore? Leah raised his brows and said with a sorrowful expression, back then, when you liked me, you said that my beauty was unparalleled and unforgettable. Now that we've been together for 1,000 years, you despise me for having lingering fears and bringing up the past again? I didn't. Gu Mengmeng could only explain 3 words before she was interrupted by Leah. You did. I. Gu Mengmeng really could not explain herself. She knew that she would get into trouble if she didn't call all her men over when she was in danger. No matter how small the danger was, no matter how insignificant, no matter how daunting it was. Even if she sprained her ankle while walking on the road, she should immediately scratch her ears and cheeks, beat her chest and stomp her feet, and call out the 4 men at home to coax her. It was only reasonable for them to take turns to appease her. Not to mention almost having a dagger stab into his heart. Gu Mengmeng sighed and looked up at Elvis. "Hubby, aren't you going to say something for me?" Elvis covered his lips and coughed softly. "Xiao Meng said she wanted to call you guys over, but I stopped her. If you have any grievances, then take it out on me." Leah turned to look at Elvis, then at Gu Mengmeng. He lowered his head and said, "I see, then I have nothing more to say." With that, Leah stood up and silently returned to his original spot. The expression on his face was as desolate as one could imagine. It was not a, "I have nothing more to say," expression, but a naked "I feel bitter in my heart but I won't say it" expression. Aside from the topic, you're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.